Hey guys. It's always like a surprise when the intro stops and I'm like, oh, they're here. Hey guys, welcome to another live show. Welcome to another live She Knows Arsenal. Make sure you guys are smashing the likes. Yes, we have a lot to talk about transfer news wise. I mean, I wish we had like a lot to talk about in terms of like incomings and getting excited. But once again, we're going through another transfer window where we're going to be talking about why we cannot sell our dead wood. Eddie and Nketiah being the main focus of said dead wood, and why it is the case that, you know, I don't know. I feel conflicted with everything. I feel like once, Marseille or our Arsenal or whatever, we came back to the table. Because remember, this has been going on for a while. We things had stopped. They tried to go to for Eli Wahi. Things with that wasn't going well. They turned back to Nketiah. We came back to the table. I think a deal should have been struck then. And if Arsenal were going to, lower their price, they should have done it there. Excuse me, guys. Oh my gosh. I've been sneezing all morning. But if once that happened and we came back to the table, we had to come to a deal. And Arsenal still stuck to the 30 million euros and they walked away and went for 25 plus 5 and like a crazy salon fee with Eli Wahi today. And so um it's yeah, I think I can really understand the frustration from Arsenal fans because Eddie is just not well liked and everybody wants him gone. They would take like a bag of chips if they could for him. And so seeing this deal that seemingly was in our hands fall apart and it looking like if we don't sell, we can't bring in somebody, it is quite frustrating. We had spoken about this on a couple of streams ago where I do think that as fans, we do think of transfers quite simplistically. The narrative that Arsenal fans are going with is if we sell Nketiah, then we get an attacker. I don't actually believe that that's the case. I think we have zero money to play with, and that's why the Merino deal is taking a long time because we probably need to sell Nketiah to get that deal done. So I don't even think it's like just that simple. And I also don't think that we can sell Nketiah for anything and get what we want. Because again, if you don't have any wiggle room and you want to buy somebody for like 50 million and the team that you're dealing with, wants a lot up front, if Marseille want to give you a loan with an obligation to buy, that's not good enough for you to get what you need to get done. So I think we think of things very simplistically, but on paper, it doesn't look good, So, and that's all we can really run with because we don't know the ins and outs of every single transfer. Now, I don't want to panic too much because every time I do, it ends up working out in some way, shape, or form. And there's still time left in the window. But my concern around selling Nketiah now is that he doesn't seem to be gathering any interest really from anybody else. And Premier League clubs are so much smarter than they were a couple of years ago. Premier League clubs a couple of years ago would take your dead wood. Now they don't. Like the Bournemouths, the West Hams, the Crystal Palaces, the Brentfords, those guys, they're too smart. They know that they can go to European sides, use their data, use their recruitment really well to bring in players of greater value than taking our expensive deadwood on big wages. So I'm not surprised that Nketiah and Reece Nelson are not getting any interest from Premier League clubs because Premier League clubs are so much smarter now. So even if a Premier League club were to come in, it could be the case that we end up having to sell them for less or we don't sell them at all. And if I had to guess what will happen, I think Arsenal would rather not sell him for less than their valuation and keep him around because they're happy with Nketiah. They're not if they were not if they were not happy with Nketiah, they would have sold him a long time ago. They gave him a big contract. They trusted him to be Jesus's backup for a couple of years. He was still in the squad last season. They definitely trust him a lot more than we do. So I think they will stick to whatever evaluation that they want. And if they can't get it, he'll just stay. And that will have repercussions because it may not even be the case that we need to sell him to get an attacker. It may be the case that we need to sell him just to bring Merino in. Remember, one in, one out. Arsenal operate very strangely. I don't see any other teams really operating this way, but we had Emil leave and then Calafiori came in right after. Now we're trying to broker the Nketiah deal and Merino is stalling. So read between the lines. I don't think it's the case that we just have the money for Merino and we're just negotiating super slow. We need Nketiah to go to move anything on because it's one in, one out, and the Crunkies also are not giving Edu any money, or that's what the rumor is. So it's not looking good. It's looking strange. It's looking very strange. And um it's just not looking like anything is happening right now. There's still time, but yeah, it's frustrating. It's really, really frustrating. I get it, especially because, we had the conversation yesterday after the game and somebody did try to take my comment about the attack out of context. I did read the comments yesterday after the player ratings, and somebody said, "Oh, you're mad that we didn't score from open play. Arsenal fans will do anything to get clicks and likes." And I was like, there was never a single time throughout that stream that I said Arsenal, like, not scoring from open play was like, I was mad about it. I made the point, and a very valid point, that our forwards did not score and they missed pretty clear chances in the game. And that is a theme with our team, is that there are too many games where our forwards don't score. And if our defenders don't come up with a set piece, we end up with nothing. And that goes back to the conversation around Arsenal needing X factor, somebody that can create something out of nothing. Some people feel like it's a striker, some people feel like it's a winger, but that player has to come in, you know? And so don't take my words out of context. I was not mad that we scored from set pieces. I'm concerned that our forwards are still not clinical enough to get us over the line. That's it, And so all of that is up in the air now because we don't even know if Nketiah's sale will get us an attacker. It may just be the case that that's what we need to do to just get a midfielder in, which we have to have to have to have. We have to bring in the midfielder. I'm sorry. Like, I know everybody's focusing in on the attack. We need the attack. We also need a midfielder, so we came into this window with a very clear agenda in my mind. Excuse me if I sound stuffed up because I am, but we needed a left back. Shocker, that's the one thing that's got done. We need a midfielder and we need an attacker. And we shouldn't have to choose between any of them. It shouldn't be the case that, oh, well, don't get the left back because then we won't get the attacker or the midfielder. We should not have to choose. At this stage, like, Arsenal should be able to get their business done. But will they? So let's look at some of the comments. I I did something, like, I had like a towel or something and I just wiped my face before I did this stream. And right after that, I could not breathe out of my nose. I don't know what I've done. So sorry, you guys. Um, Sorry. Jonathan K says, I'm just baffled. Where has our money gone? I don't think the money just like disappeared or anything like that. I just feel like, think about the way that the last, like, let's say 4 windows that we've had under Mikel Arteta, we had, we had the summer where we got Partey and Gabriel Jesus, or sorry, Partey and Gabriel. We had the summer where we got Odegaard. We did the big one, right? We got Odegaard, Ben White, Ramsdale, Tomiyasu, Tavares, and Sambi. Then we had the next window where we got Jesus and Zinchenko and Fabio Vieira. Then the next window we got Rice and Havertz and Timber. And now we're in this window. Look at how much we've spent versus how much we have sold. In the first couple of windows, the excuses around not having players that we could sell made sense. But as we went along, it became, I think, clear over the last maybe 2 windows that we're not good at selling. Like, we're just really just not good at selling. It's not just other teams can sell their dead wood for something. And this is why I also felt like we shouldn't have to really lower our valuation for Eddie. We should be able to broker this deal. I don't think we should have to choose. I think at this stage, our sporting director should be able to take Eddie, tons of experience, played loads of games for Arsenal Football Club, 25 years old. Even though we don't rate him, I've seen many players from other Premier League sides go to other clubs for good fees. How many times have we said, "How did they get this for that player?" And none of us rate him, so not rating him doesn't have anything to do with it. We should be able to sell our players for our valuations now. Like, I don't think 25 million pounds is too much for Eddie Nketiah. I don't. I really, really don't. And this is coming from somebody who doesn't rate Eddie. But I'm tired of seeing us have to give our players away because Edu can't negotiate. I think we have a bigger problem with our sporting director not being able to get the right fees than the players actually being unsellable. You know? Like, we've made a lot of decisions to cancel contracts, let people go for free, damn near sell people for a nominal fee, allow so many of our youngsters to go, like youngsters from the academy just to go for free, just for our rivals to sell them on for 20 million pounds. We are not good at selling, and it's not that we don't have assets, we don't know how to sell, you know? And I'm just like, it's stopping us from being able to do what we need to do. So I don't think we have to always like lower the valuation. I think we should be able to sell for our valuation because everybody else does. Everyone else does. They sell for their valuations. So why can't we? Hello? Like, Josh KB says, so I'm guessing it's Havertz in midfield again against Wolves. Um, probably. Probably. Or I mean, no, not necessarily. It could be Partey, Rice. Uh, the team that we started off with against Lyon, it's not a certainty that Havertz will play midfield. Uh, I think if Merino doesn't come in, we will see him, in midfield at some point. But right now, our best options in midfield, excuse me, is, in my opinion, either playing Partey, Rice, and Odegaard or Jorginho, Rice, and Odegaard. Those two options should be exhausted before we do Havertz in midfield. So yeah. But let's see. The Arsenal perspective says 45 million for Eddie and Reese is decent. I'm telling you right now that like we should be able to sell Eddie and Nketiah for 25 million pounds. That we should. We should be able to sell him for that amount. Like, the fact that it feels like we can't is crazy, and that was the fee that I was saying that we needed, like, we should have gotten. Some people would have taken the 17 million pounds, which was what they originally offered, just because they want Eddie to go. I want my sporting director to be able to pull off the same type of miracles that other sporting directors do. They sell shit players, like, other teams are not selling better players than we are. They're just able to sell. So, what is the problem? What is the problem? So yeah, Jordan Hill says, wait, so Eddie's leaving or not? So for those of you guys who are just joining, uh Eddie is not going to Marseille. That deal is completely collapsed. Because they went for Eli Wahi. So there was about uh a 2-day period, because obviously I'm tracking these freaking like this whole shit, is that it was like they turned their attention to Eli Wahi probably about a week ago, and Lons didn't want to sell because they offered that initial 17 million that they were trying to offer us. They offered Lons that 17 million for Wahi, but Lons they had bought Eli Wahi for like 30 million, so they didn't want to sell at a loss, right? So that didn't work out. So Marseille and Arsenal came back to the table for Eddie Nketiah. There was about a 48-hour period where the narrative was, and it came like Ornstein, Fabrice Hawkins were all saying that both of them were back at the table and negotiations were ongoing, but we wanted a 30 million euros, and they were unwilling to pay that. So at that stage, that was our last opportunity to go down on our valuation. And if we had went down on our valuation, we would have sold him for probably about 25 million euros, which is about 20 million pounds. Because that's what they were willing to pay for Eddie. That's what I read, because I'm not just reading headlines. Like, I actually read that, like, from the articles, that Marseille did not want to pay 30 million euros for Eddie Nketiah, right? And so we would have had to have went down. So that was like the last ditch opportunity. So yeah, my thing is, if Arsenal don't think that anybody else is going to come to the table, maybe they could have went down, but equally, you know, we should be able to sell our players for our valuations at this stage. I don't think 5 years on under Edu, we should be at the same stage that we always are at, where it's everybody is looking at our players and saying, "Well, we can't pay," but they'll pay for other players that are not so much better than them. Now, Eli Wahi is a little bit different because he's younger and shit, but like I saw Juventus are now going for Danso, and they're gonna. It looks like they're willing to spend 20 to 25 million on him. And I'm just like, Kiwior is about to get left here on the bench. Like, it's so obvious that he's about to be left here on the bench. Why is it the case that we can't get any Italian teams to the table for Kiwior for 20 million pounds? Why is that the case? So um, it's not just about Eddie not being good. It's about the fact that it's like a pattern, that we have players in our team that are not as bad as maybe we think they are, but we can't even get to anybody at the table. So yeah. Vig says, "Oh, guys, I have like crumbs all over my face. You guys didn't tell me I was eating a donut. And this was the napkin that I was eating the donut with. So when I was wiping my nose, I was actually wiping fucking donut crumbs into my face, and you guys didn't tell me. This is like the third time that you guys have allowed me to have stuff on my face and you haven't said anything. So you guys are my real friends." Aha says, Nketiah Nelson wages is a sticking point, both 100K a week. Nelson has never had a run of games for us, even after this deal. Nketiah has had runs of games before. Jermaine says, "You got bits of tissue on your place. Thought you should know." Well, thanks, Jermaine. Thanks. Thanks. Oh, thank you. Back to this. I think, the definitely the donuts are so good. Like, it's a cronut. It's so good. But the wages are obviously like not good. But again, I remember like when we gave both of them those contracts, and I was just like, when did Eddie sign that contract? It must have been like 3 years ago or something like that. It feels like ages ago, and they gave him the 14. It was just like, "Why are we doing this?" "Why are we forcing this?" It doesn't make no sense. So, I understand the wages aspect of things, and maybe that's where the wiggle room should come down. But even our players that are not on high ass wages, we cannot move on for decent fees. It's just like insane to me. But yeah, I think a good sporting director can make magic happen. I think an average one, like probably like I do, really struggles to get anything from anybody at any time. You know, Philip says Bournemouth just got 65 million pounds for Solanke, so might come in for Eddie. The problem with this, though, is that, like we're just saying, the wages, but also Bournemouth are smart. Bournemouth, their recruitment since, Michael B. Jordan and like the new owners have come in, and their new manager has come in. Do you see them actually buying from Premier League clubs? No, they're gonna bring in players. Like, I think they just brought in Arahu, from he was at Barcelona and used to be at the LA Galaxy. Like, they're not looking to buy like Chilwell from Chelsea. Like, they're not gonna do that. They're not gonna spend 40 million on Chilwell from Chelsea. They're gonna go to European sides and recruit well, buy those players, and then we're gonna buy those players for 100 million. Bournemouth is in the same category as Brentford, as Brighton, as like those teams that have gotten so much smarter over the last couple of years. So I don't actually see them coming in for Eddie. I don't. I really don't see them coming in for Eddie. I think they're too smart, and they will use that money well. They'll take that 65 million and find a striker in Europe and reinvest properly. So Yeah, Kayinda says a new stick to hit Edu and Arteta with. If we sell for less, we would be ridiculed. And but that's like it's just I understand that aspect of things too. I don't think we should be at a stage where we can't sell for our valuation. And I also think that we need to be careful about always accepting way less or less than what we want for players because it doesn't establish us in, you know, it doesn't establish us in the market. Equally, we have to think about what led us to the place where it's so hard to sell these academy players that they're not good enough for us, but they're good enough for somebody. And I think the major thing is that we gave them those contracts with those big wages and then we let them sit on the bench for so long that nobody could see them. And so last honestly, Eddie and Reese Nelson should have been gone last summer. I think we all know that. Like Brighton came in for Nelson, and Nketiah had, interest from other teams, and we were like, no, we don't want to sell. They're a part of the project. And I think that was the summer to sell them both on. We waited too long. So I think it's more the case that we gave them bad contracts, then we give people bad contracts and then we don't play them to the level of their contract. If you give somebody a new contract and you put them on 100,000 pounds per week, you're saying that you're really somebody that I trust, I like, and I value. That's what you're saying. So if you like and trust and value these players, then they should not be sitting on our bench for days on end. Like Reese Nelson played no role in last season. And I could have told you before the season started that that's what was going to happen. So why are we continuously doing the nonsense? And if they won't sell or if they won't sign new deals unless they get 100,000 pounds per week, then kick rocks. Why is it that they're always getting their way, but we're not getting ours? So yeah, I think actually the problem is we set ourselves up for the future sale not to happen and we always sell too late. So yeah. And Kamal says Bournemouth are going for Evan Nielsen. They're too smart, guys. Like these clubs are no longer idiots. They're not going to buy Nketiah when they can go to a European side, spend probably like 15 million or something, 20 million on a player that probably has a higher ceiling than Eddie. So we're not like that's dead. Like every time somebody sells somebody, they're like, oh, they're gonna come in for Eddie. They're not going to. Let's see. Unknown C says, "What's up, Jess? I question the EQ. I question the EQ of the likes of Edu and Garlic, etc. The fact that there were initially several clubs interested in Eddie, but ended up in just Marseille should have been a signal to cash in. And the problem is that Eddie decided he only wanted to go to Marseille. And once he decided that, it made it so that we could only like our leverage had went down because we couldn't actually like he wasn't willing to go to any other club. Then when we're with negotiating with Marseille, other teams are solving their striker problem while we're fucking around. With Marseille who never like and we do this all the time, so we can't even really be mad at Marseille for doing this, but getting a player to sign personal terms and to only want to go to your club lessens the like it really like damages the leverage of the selling club. So then you can slow things down and do things at your pace and do things at your terms. So yeah, Eddie doing that hurt us. And so yeah, but also I wanted to bring this up because I think it's topical right now, especially because of like what's going on with other clubs around us. But I also don't think we're ruthless enough with the players that we should be really ruthless with. I've seen the club be incredibly ruthless with the likes of Leno, with the likes of Ramsdale, with the likes of Aubameyang. We've seen the club be so ruthless. Don't come to training. We've already replaced you. You sit out, blah, blah, blah. We've seen that. As much as I know we want to be the class and all, and we want to be great and nice and all this kind of stuff, I really do think with these players that are on like that are stopping us from being able to do the things that we want to do, we have to be a little bit more brutal. Like I'm not saying be just like Chelsea, but I do think that Chelsea have a policy where they're not going to allow anybody no matter who they are, hinder them from moving in the market. And so if that means not letting them train, if that means, like forcing them to go somewhere, they make it happen. And I don't think we should do it all the time, but I don't think it's like if you can do that to Aubameyang, if you can do that to, Leno and, kind of like force him out, then you could probably do that to Eddie and Reese, because they just sit around, do nothing, uh, aren't don't seem super desperate to go. Very happy to sit on those wages. There has to be a way to be a little bit more brutal with them. But that was just a thought that came into my mind. I'm like, yeah, that's just a thought that came into my mind. We need to be a little bit more ruthless when it comes to players that we don't want in the team that haven't done us dirty, if that makes sense. Like, or not, like we didn't let Ramsdale get in our way of getting Raya, did we? Like that's like the perfect example. Raya, like Ramsdale, perfectly good, like goalkeeper, has some problems, but it's not an emergency on anybody's list. Arsenal, we're not going to let anything stop them from bringing in David Raya. They didn't give a fuck. Even if they knew that they couldn't sell him this summer, which they're struggling to sell him, they didn't give a fuck. They were going to get Raya. We should be just as ruthless as we were with Ramsdale, with the likes of Reece Nelson and Nketiah. And I know the main difference is that they're Hale End, but quite frankly, they're stopping us from being able to do what we need to do. And if their agents are going to be desperate to find them places to go, then we need to be desperate to help them. Just saying. Brian, thank you so much for your super chat. Brian says at some point we have to take what the market dictates for Eddie. Eddie, fringe starter at a top 5 club at best. Get the money in so we can get an attacker. I love this super chat. Thank you so much. My only caveat to this is that I kind of agree with what you're saying, but the idea that like we have no clue if we had sold Eddie for whatever amount Marseille were actually willing to give us for him. We don't even know the structure of the deal. We don't know what they were going to give us up front. We don't, because they wanted like a loan with an option at first, then a loan with an obligation, maybe, then, not really the loan without obligation, but, way less, so we actually don't know if we had just sold Eddie that we would actually be able to get an attacker. Do you see what I'm saying? Because the assumption from everybody is sell Eddie, get an attacker. But if Marseille are only going to offer us 2 pennies up front, or they're not going to offer us enough to actually be able to get, because remember, the Cronkies aren't giving Eddie no fucking money. So it's not like there's just like, there may not be any money there. So my only thing for like people that are like sell Eddie means get an attacker is that if you were to sell the Eddie for like the 17 million that they originally wanted, because honestly, that's what they wanted to pay for him. They wanted to pay the 17 million. If you get that and they're only willing to offer like 5 million up front and they want to stagger it over 10 years, but we want to go over to, let's say we did want to go for Nico Williams, but they need 50 million up front, or the other club wants 20 million up front, or another club wants 10 million up front. We don't have that. So there's no guarantee that selling Eddie means we're going to get an attacker. You know what I mean? So that's the only thing I'm saying. But I do like the super chat. I do think that you guys make a good point about just selling for whatever somebody's willing to offer, because just get Eddie out. But we're not even able to move on Merino. If you don't think the two are connected, I don't know. I think the two are connected. I actually think we need to sell Eddie for a certain amount to be able to afford Merino. That's what I think. But hey. Social Droid says transfer team is not very good. They take so long for everything. That's another thing that just drives me insane is the slowness in which we move. We move incredibly slow. Like we do not move fast. And, at the beginning of the window, it was, well, the Euros and Copa America. And my whole thing is like, but you could be doing shit right now, couldn't you? Players were moving during those tournaments. We just decided not to do anything during that time. And even with Calafiori, that moved incredibly slow, and we got him and it's fine. But Merino, like, it should not take a month to get this type of deal done. Declan Rice, that made sense because it's a 100 million pound deal. You expect that to take a long time, but 20 something million for Merino is taking incredibly long. And my only thing is maybe it's because we don't actually have the money available because we haven't set in the bid yet. So let's see. Nico says, I can already see this being used as an excuse next season if we don't win the league. There are, but here's the thing is we haven't even gotten to it, but me and Harry are actually going to do a show. We're going to talk about some of this and release like a podcast about it for the Cannon Club. Cannon Club is back before the beginning of the season. But I'm going to tell you guys right now, for me, there's no excuse not to win the league or to win something. That's what I'll say. I'm not like, I feel like it's disingenuous to demand the league, but I demand a trophy. Like, I demand a trophy. We've had enough time to build a squad that can win a trophy. We've had a team that could win a trophy for the last 3 seasons. We just chose not to take any other cup seriously. And so from my perspective, I think it's going to be even harder to win the Premier League this season than it was last 2 seasons because they were basically 2-horse races. I don't think it'll be a 2-horse race this season. I think it actually might be truly a 3-horse one with Liverpool. I think it's going to be even more difficult. We're already struggling with the likes of Aston Villa. We're struggling with the likes of West Ham. They've strengthened. Newcastle probably won't be in injury crisis this season. They'll be tougher, so, and we already struggled to beat those teams home and away. We didn't beat Aston Villa at all. We beat West Ham once and we beat Newcastle once. So from my perspective, it's like, I'm not going to demand the Premier League, but I'm demanding a trophy. Like this team needs to know what it feels like to win, because the longer you don't win, the more of a loser you become. Like, it becomes who you are. Like, losing for so long, it becomes you, so they need to break that cycle now. And even if they do feel like this team, the first trophy that they feel that they win is a FA Cup, they will know what it takes and how it feels to win the next season, because it's still going to be difficult to win the Premier League. It just is. Even if we bought a striker and a midfielder, I still don't feel like anything that we could do would guarantee us the Premier League, because City are just that good. And to pretend like they're not, you're just lying to yourself. If you've won it 4 years in a row, you are the favorite. There's nothing we could do this summer that would make us the favorite. Not. They have a better manager still. There's nothing we could bought that would make our squad better than theirs. It's just like, you know what I mean? So it's still hard, but we need to win a trophy. And so there is no excuse, because nobody made you make those decisions that you made, to continuously buy left backs, to not buy an attacker when you had the money available to you. Because I hate to go back to it, but this summer the Cronkies cut you off and now you can't maneuver because you can't sell. But in the summer where they decided to give us 200 million to spend, you didn't spend it properly. Like, and you know what I'm saying? Like, the summer where they gave us all that money and we were able to spend it on fucking whatever, we blew it. You had to spend that on players that were going to be the difference between us winning the league and not. And I'm not quite sure that, a goalkeeper and a left back, is like the main reasons why we're not winning the league. I just feel like we don't have X factor, and that's the one thing we haven't tried yet. So let's try to get the attacker. Let's see if that makes a difference. But we're just like very like adverse to it. So yeah, we have to win a trophy this season. Like, this will be the 5th season under Mikel Arteta, 5th full season. There's no reason why this team cannot win a trophy, because we've had a team capable of winning one for years now, but we're so focused on the Premier League and we're not even doing enough to get us close enough to City where we actually really can win it. So it's like, bruh, like, let's just get a trophy. Let's get one under our belt, and then we'll see what we do next season. Like, we need a trophy, period. And for me, there's no real like way to like go around it. Now, I think we like Arteta, will be blamed for like a lot of everything. Like if we don't challenge for the league or we fall by the wayside or we don't win a trophy, a lot of people will blame Mikel. But I actually think Edu cripples him a lot. I think not only do they put Arteta in a position where he has almost too much power and there's no adult in the room telling him, yeah, no, we're not going to buy you a Kai Havertz. We're going to buy you an actual striker because that's what we need. Or we're going to go out there and buy a top quality midfielder, complete the midfield, complete something, complete the midfield or complete the attack. We've completed the defense a couple of times. Like, let's complete the midfield and complete the attack. Like, somebody needs to be telling Arteta that he's not going to get a Kai Havertz. Somebody needs to tell Arteta that he's not going to get another left back. Somebody needs to tell Mikel that he needs to use the players on the bench. Somebody needs to tell Mikel that in order for us not to lose these academy players, they need to have a pathway. Like, that's what we need from our sporting director. So Arteta will be the casualty. And I feel like as much as I do feel like he makes mistakes, I do think his coaching has actually made us a lot better than what our squad actually is. Our squad is very good, but on paper, it's not that much better than a lot of other teams. But Arteta's coaching is so good that his coaching actually gives us that extra 5% that gets us closer to City. But if you just look at our squad on paper in comparison to everyone else, it's not like 1,000 times better. And so that's my only thing would be like Arteta would be the casualty. But I actually think Edu is a bigger problem because he can't sell. He doesn't tell Arteta no. Like, and we've been for 5 seasons. We should not be asking for basic shit like a striker now. Like as soon as Aubameyang left, not even just Aubameyang, like Jesus, he had that first season. We should have brought a real striker right after that, and had one striker and one Jesus. That would have been fine. Like, I don't know, but it's a shame. But there'll be casualties, and it'll probably be Mikel if we don't do anything. But I think there needs to be a deeper inquest into how we built the squad. Why is it that there's been so much money spent, but we still have major holes in the team? Why is it that we can't sell players? Why is it that they're on high wages? Why? Brian Holiday says, I get it. I'm just tired of Arsenal moving like we are broke when we're ripping up contracts for attitude problems left and right a few years ago. I hear you for sure. But I'm not even saying people are wrong. I disagree just ever so slightly on the just sell for whatever people are willing to offer. But in this case with Eddie, I can see where maybe we should just take what they're willing to offer. But I actually don't think that we can just sell for whatever, because there's a reason why they were holding on to that valuation. They don't have any money to move for anybody else, and they need a certain amount. That's what it feels like to me. Josh says, it feels to me that when Arteta inevitably bottles the league, he'll accept the contract terms that the club have offered, or maybe he leaves for free. Millen says, yes, City is good, but Conte, Tuchel, Klopp have beaten him to win big trophies. They aren't invincible. Mourinho at Real La Liga against Super. No, City is not invincible, but I do think that when you think about the amount of times, like we're talking about beating him to the league, beating him to the Champions League is different because we haven't played them in the Champions League yet. So you have to take the Tuchel aside. Like that's a completely different thing. But in terms of the league and all the leagues that he's been in, only 3 managers have been able to pip him to the league in like 12 years. So it's not really like, I mean, you could say, but Klopp has done it, but Klopp only did it once. Yeah, Mourinho's done it, but Mourinho only did it once. Oh, but what was it? Ancelotti did it? No, there was one other. No, Conte did it. Yeah, but like they only did it once. The reality is like wherever Pep goes, he is the favorite for the league. And there's only, you know what I mean? Like just because somebody did it once doesn't mean it's the most likely outcome. It's a very unlikely outcome based statistically that we will win the league. It's statistically unlikely that we will win the league based on Pep being like they've won 4 times in a row. So just because Conte did it once doesn't mean it's likely. It's incredibly unlikely. It's not impossible, but it's unlikely. And we had a really our the first opportunity that we had was our best opportunity. The second season, not as good of an opportunity. We actually never really looked like winning it really. So that was like whatever. This season, I don't know what it's going to look like, but I actually my gut is telling me that if we thought last season was hard, get ready. This season is going to be even more difficult because the teams around us have strengthened to a place where it's like if we're not ready, we're gonna really struggle against Villa and West Ham and Newcastle and these teams because we already struggled with them already, and they're just strengthening even more. My problem with us is not even just like the big teams, is for some reason we can compete against Man United and Chelsea. We always have been able to. Chelsea, like for the last 10 years, we've been able to compete with Chelsea and Man United. Like that has been fine. And lately we've been got a lot better with Liverpool and City. We actually struggle with the upper mid-table kind of group. That's the group that we're struggling with now. So yeah, I think that it's unlikely that we win the league. And any Arsenal fan that's sitting there saying that, we should be certainly winning it is stupid. But do we have a good chance of winning a trophy in general? Yeah. If we take any of the domestic competitions even remotely serious, we have a good chance. Because in a cup competition, you can luck your way to a cup final. You can get so fucking lucky. So lucky. And in times gone past, I think we have gotten lucky. I think we played against an underbaked Liverpool last season. The season prior, we played against the City that was ass and still lost. So you can get lucky in a cup. But what you can't get lucky in is a league. There is no luck. You have to be the best team. And we are not better than City. So the likelihood of us winning the Premier League is very, very slim. When's the last time a team that didn't deserve to win it won it? Or not the best team won it? The league is so difficult to win. But a cup, we can win a fucking cup. If we just even take it even remotely serious. For 1 second, we can win a cup. Like, period. Paul says we have to get at least the Carabao or the FA. Period. Period. Like, it's just not like you don't have to be the best team to win a cup, but you have to be the best team to win the league. You have to. And we're not better than City. I have questions on whether we're better than Liverpool now. So I don't know what to tell you guys. Um, Han Tiumi says last season we were better than City, but they still won. We weren't better than City. We're not better than City. If you look at the underlying metrics of like our chance creation, the amount of like all that kind of stuff, we were a better defensive team, but we're not better than City. We are not better than City. I don't know where people are getting it in their mind that we are a better team than City. Last season, we were not the best team. We were probably the best team in 2024, but the league starts in fucking August. We were not the better team before we went to Dubai. So I'm sorry, we were not better than City. We're not better than City. Like, let's stop pretending like we're better than City. One of my biggest pet peeves is Arsenal fans that have deluded themselves into thinking that we're just as good as City. The only team I've ever seen that has ever looked even close to City is Klopp's Liverpool. That's it. Like, we are not better than City. Like, like, bruh, like, like I get so tired of people saying that. But we don't have to be the best team to win a cup. And that's my point. Saida says everything comes back to the Cronkies. Edu and Co aren't good enough. I don't like comparing, but when you look at our rivals' technical directors, there's a very big gap in quality. I was talking to a friend about this. That I am like two of your like obviously like having good players is like what everybody cares about, but having like a really really good manager and having like a really really good technical director can get you above other teams that have good talent. I think those are two really underrated things. Like You can look at our team, like I said, versus other teams, but because Arteta is better than their coaches, we end up being better. We're better coached, our patterns are better, we're more well drilled, things like that. A technical director can give you like an additional 5% because they sell, you're able to reinvest the money into better talent. They can identify talent that's maybe not as expensive, but their ceilings are high. You can get deals done a lot quicker. So you're not starting the season at a loss. A technical director is very, very important and very underrated, I think. And I've said it for a long time that I think if I had to get rid of one, I would get rid of Edu over Arteta. I think Arteta is a much better coach than Edu is a technical director. Like, and everybody else around us has really good technical directors. West Ham, Villa, Newcastle, United all have better technical directors than us. I said what I said. I said what I said. They have on paper and based on what they've done, their track record, they have much better technical directors. And we're not even talking about Liverpool and City because we already know what they are. So the gap is going to close very quickly because we don't have a technical director that can tell Mikel Arteta not to buy Kai Havertz with 65 million. Like instead of going to get Kudus, he gets Kai Havertz. And I like Kai, but again, that made no sense and still doesn't to me to this day. If the Cronkies gave me 200 million, I would have spent it so fucking different. And maybe that's why I'm sitting here talking to you guys. I don't know shit, but I don't think Paul Mitchell or Tim, whatever his name at West Ham, I don't think any of those guys would have spent the 65 million on Kai Havertz. That's all I'm saying. Social Join says the cup won't do anything for you. You will still complain. Humans are predictable. No, not necessarily, because you can't tell me that I would still complain when I've been saying it for the last 2 seasons. If we finish second and won a FA Cup, I would much prefer that than finishing second and doing nothing. Maybe some of you guys would still complain, but because I know that the likelihood of us winning the league is very slim, of course I'm going to take that cup. And of course, I'm still going to be like, we didn't win the league. So it's, like if you don't win the league and you're in the title race, you're going to be disappointed. But nothing is more disappointing than coming up with nothing. So speak for yourself. But I've been begging for us to take the cup competitions more seriously for the exact reason I've been saying. We have a very unlikely chance of winning the Premier League. And people that want us to continuously focus on that and don't care about the domestic cups are deluded. And I think a lot of people do that because then they feel like they have like this very easy excuse of why it's okay that we finish trophyless. We should be so much more competitive in those domestic cups than we have been. And this season, if we go out early, I'm going to be so angry. And yes, I will rant because this is my channel and I'll do what I want. So don't show up if you don't like it. I hate it. The Arsenal perspective says Edu has a real risk of suffering from foot in mouth syndrome after telling us to be patient and fumbling the Eddie cell. Well, people were saying that that wasn't a real quote. So I'm going to just forget that that was even ever put into the air. I'm going to put that. Yeah, I'm going to put that to the side. I don't think he ever said it. Anton Dunn says, or even Declan Rice for that matter, just in my opinion. I want to say, hold on. I want to say that you're talking about maybe not buying Declan Rice for the 100 million, which I can understand why I think it's a really good signing. I still would have paid the 100 million for Declan Rice, but what I would have also done is made sure that I would have actually bought a left center mid and not just left us out to dry and tried to experiment with Kai Havertz at left center mid. I think that actually has hurt Declan Rice at Arsenal a lot more than people think, but I think that signing was successful. Maybe we could have broken it down into 50 million, 50 million, 65 million and got 3 players. Maybe that would have been a better use, but I probably still would have bought Declan Rice, but I feel like a lot of our problems that we still have today could have been solved with just one top quality attacker or one top quality left center mid, and we've had multiple opportunities to get those signings done. So, yeah, but I can see why some people are like, we shouldn't have never bought Declan Rice. I do think people just go with whatever narrative that rivals are saying or whatever. But Declan Rice doesn't just pass backwards and sideways. He does make us better. He is like a very, very good player, and he's only going to get better from here. But I can understand why some people didn't want him. I also think some people don't want him because it, the whole Partey thing. But like realistically, like Declan Rice is a really good signing to me. Um, Josh says Rice had a lot more great games than bad. The other thing about Rice that he has that some of our other midfielders don't have is the ability to score big goals in big moments. And you know, I hope that never gets coached out of him because I feel like a lot of our players are afraid to shoot in big moments or afraid to get into the box and make things happen. But Declan Rice scored some massive goals for us that none of our other midfielders will ever score for us. They just won't. They don't have the balls to, you know, like if what some of our other midfielders got that ball that Sanchez kicked out, like in the Chelsea game, they would have dribbled and kicked it wide or passed it to somebody else. They wouldn't even been in the box for the Luton game. They wouldn't have even been anywhere near. They wouldn't have shot when that ball came out to him and he scored against Man United. Like for me, Rice is a slam dunk signing, but for other people, it's not. And it is what it is. We all have opinions, It is what it is. I think Rice solves a lot more of our problems than Kai does, and I think he stands out to me as still a strange signing. Um, but that's just me. Johnny D says, I wouldn't be so doom and gloom about Rice and Havertz. Most players adapt in the first season, then unleash in the second season. Imagine that we will win if they do as I think will happen. I think even if they do play as good as they possibly can, we still will be lacking the X factor in the final third that we all know we need. Uh, So, like that's another thing. It's like I saw somebody talking about it on socials. I know we've kind of went on a tangent here, but they were talking about how like fans never like in when we do our like predictions or talk about like the team and how the team is going to get better, they only calculate how much better we can get based on who we buy and never on how much better the team will get in terms of individuals just improving or the manager improving certain parts about the way that we play. uh, and I think one of probably our main advantages over the other teams that I spoke about that, you know, um, could get better this season is that they have either newer coaches or newer ideas that they're trying to implement where we're kind of building on principles that we've had for 3 seasons now. So we are ahead of them by just there. Like you guys would get what I'm saying. Like we're already ahead of them because we're not trying to learn how we're gonna play. We already know how we're gonna play. We're not trying to learn each other. Like we already know what our starting 11 is pretty much gonna look like. But fans only really think about like the only way that they can get better is by buying players. But there's also the aspect of players can get better. And I do think that that's why we're looking at Gabriel Jesus and Martinelli to have good seasons because we completely lost them last season. Thinking about players like Havertz and Rice, what could they do in their second season? Maybe they'll get even better than they were last season. But even with that, I still feel like we have gaps in the squad that just cannot be they cannot be filled by other players playing better or Arteta coaching us in a different way. We just lack a certain personality in the team, and that cannot be coached. Like, none of our players are gonna get that overnight. So, yeah, I still think we can get better. I still think we can get better. I think, like, just not I was saying this, like, I actually think we are much more prepared going into this beginning part of the season than we were last season. Last season, we knew we didn't look right. There was no cohesion. We had broken apart the midfield that we had played with the last 2 seasons. We were struggling. The last 2 games that we played in the Emirates Cup showed me everything I need to know. We have probably 16 players that can play in that starting 11 and we don't lose too much. We know how we're going to play. We look fit. The ideas are there. We're fine, you know. But it would be nice to bring in a couple of signings, which I understand that too. But yeah, but good comment. Really good comment. Boy says Kudus wouldn't be able to play ahead of Saka. I don't give a damn. He's the type of player you find somewhere to put him because he is going to change the game for you. He could play left 8, he can play in the 10. You could put him at false 9. You find a place for him to play. Like, it's not about him stepping up over Saka. Um, Millen says last season we were told Declan sideways was the final piece of the puzzle. This season we are not buying any piece. Um, I don't know who told you that he was the final piece of the puzzle, but I don't think anybody would have said he's the final piece of the puzzle without us buying a striker. So, um, yeah, I don't know who you were talking to, but I think at the end of the window, almost everybody felt like we still missed out on certain pieces. So, not sure about this final piece nonsense you're talking about. Jordan Davis says, just how does West Ham and Fulham and Villa and these teams move with more ambition than us? This is 100% an Edu Garlic issue. These guys are not competent or ambitious. Um, uh, I wouldn't put Fulham in there, but I would definitely put like Villa and West Ham. They bought a lot. Now, here's my thing is I don't equate buying a lot with buying well all the time because we panic anytime any team buys lots of players because we are obsessed with transfer dopamine. I guarantee that if we sign 3 players right now of an average level, there would be a lot of Arsenal fans that are excited just for the simple fact that we're signing someone. So I don't really care about the amount of players that you're buying. I'm thinking, how many gaps have you filled? Uh, I'm less I'm less sure about Villa and how they've addressed whatever problems that they have, but West Ham have definitely solved a lot of their problems. They bought a striker that's better than Antonio. They bought another winger, so if something happens to Bowen, they have somebody else to step in that's of a really good level in Somerville. I think most upper mid-table teams would have taken Somerville. They bought another DM in Guido Rodriguez, so now they can push Ward-Prowse a little bit higher. They can play a double pivot of Alvarez and Guido Rodriguez. If you don't know what they're trying to do, they're trying to kill you, take the ball, and counterattack. That's what that midfield looks like to me. And they've also solved their center back issue because they had really average center backs. Agard and Zuma are not as good as Kilman and Tadibo, so and they also bought a right back to replace Sioux Fall. So no more Sioux Fall, no more Souček, 2 incredibly average players that they've replaced in midfield and defense. They've added to their attack. West Ham, to me, are having a really, really good window, and they also look like they're going to continue to buy. So I think it's just a matter of having a good technical director. They may not have to, maybe they're having their summer of where they don't have to sell as much, like their owners are giving them the money, fronting it, whatever. Because who have West Ham actually sold? That did they sell Zuma? I'm not sure. So yeah, but they're using their money really well, and they're solving the actual problems that they have. And this is from an outsider looking in. But if I was a West Ham fan and the season had ended at the end of last season, the first thing I would have said is we need new center backs. We need another midfielder because Souček is ass, and we need to get Antonio out of the 11. And they've done all of that. So I think it's just about having a good technical director because what we do every window is we solve probably like one of our problems and then leave the other 2 still there, but continuously buy center backs and goalkeepers and left backs instead of doing other shit. So as much as I feel like we needed Calafiori, we mostly needed Calafiori because we messed up on left back 3 or 4 times before that. Like we still have Tierney. We bought Tavares. We bought Tomiyasu. We bought Zinchenko. And we bought Kiwior. And we still needed to buy another left back. So that's what I'm saying. I'm saying that, like, I've never seen a team mess up one particular position so many times. And because we continuously buy in that position, we can't buy anywhere else. So yeah, I think they just have good technical directors. Like, I think that's just really what it is. I think Arteta is less of a problem. I think somebody needs to save him from himself. I think somebody needs to say, Arteta, I get what you're saying, but we're going to get you this player. You'll work with him. If he can work with Chambers, if he can work with Mari, if he can work with Lacazette, he can work with something else. Like Arteta can work with a lot of like bad shit. Like he can. So somebody just needs to tell him no and solve the problems that need solving. Like, period. You know? Troy says Saka has backup in Waneri. To me, it's not even about Saka backup. It's about adding X factor or at least a different quality or different attribute to the front line. Everybody's focused on that person being a Saka backup. That person is not going to play that much as a Saka backup, but what they are going to do is add pace or 1v1 dribbling or something different to a front line that lacks all of those things. We don't have a 1v1 dribbler, like an elite 1v1 dribbler. We don't have people, the Martinelli crew are going to kill me for this, but we need more pace. Martinelli's not enough. And we don't have clinical finishing. So we could bring it, we're probably not, if you want to bring in a player that has all three of those things, we're talking about like spending on an elite player. But we could add one or two of those things by buying a player in maybe like the 50 million pound range. Uh, and that player does not just have to be a Saka backup. But we lack so much in our front line, or not so much, but there are just things we don't have in our front line, like that we should probably address. But yeah, Millen says invented pickpocket isn't winning anything. This team has some good players. We need to move on from this fraud. Um, I don't think Arteta is really the issue. I'll be really honest with you. I think Arteta is less of an issue because he doesn't do the negotiating. He doesn't do like when we get into the transfer window, most of my thing is focused on Edu and Garlic. So I know people are just get rid of Arteta, but I think it's not just Arteta. I think the sporting director has a lot of culpability here, but it's not the end of the transfer window yet, so maybe things can still happen. But I know how Arsenal are. If they can't find their perfect signing, uh, if they can't find their perfect signing and things start to drag on, they'll just say they're not going to do anything. They have enough, and so I expected us to get Merino in and then for that report to come out right after that we're good with what we have and we're not going to add anything to the forward line. So let's see. Yeah, there's nothing's really happening with Merino. Yeah, it's just crazy. Whew. Yeah, it's crazy. Greeny Man says, I'd take DCL at this point. I would not. Arsenal Perspective says, which report? You know how we get at the when we're like, okay, we just need one more signing, and then the report comes out from Ornstein or Gunner Blog or whatever that Arsenal are more than happy with the options that they have and they not to expect any more signings. I expected that after Merino, but right now, hmm, crazy. Josh says worse than the January window where we signed nobody. Um, Yeah. We've had some really bad windows, and actually, I don't think there's when's the last time I don't think we've ever had a window where it closed and we felt like we got everything done. I think every window it closes and like the rational people, not the people that feel like we need a whole new team. There really are some like not so smart people in our fan base that are always talking about bringing in 6, 7 players. We don't need 6 or 7 players, like, we know we needed going into this window probably 3, maybe 4 if you're pushing it, but 3. But I can't remember a window where it closed and I was like, "Yeah, we did that shit." Mostly because we never get the attacker. I think that's the thing is that we've been asking for the attacker for a while. We've been putting uh a lot of pressure on Martinelli and Saka to become Mane and Salah for us. Because if they were Mane and Salah, we wouldn't need an attacker. That's the truth. Like we would have enough. If Saka and Martinelli were Mane and Salah level, we would not need anything else. We'd be fine. We could have a dead center forward that doesn't score a lot of goals. It wouldn't matter because those two are both world-class elite forwards that are gonna do what they need to do, but they're not them, so we need more, you know? And I think until we buy the attacker, we're always gonna feel like the window is lacking. Millen says Saliba will definitely move on if we don't win this season. Social Join says our almost last season, Havertz ruined it. Yeah, that window just went backwards to me. Because Rice was good, Timber was good. If we had just bought another midfielder or just the attacker, like if we would have ended that window with Kudus, Timber, and Rice, you couldn't tell me shit. You couldn't tell me nothing. Like, you couldn't tell me nothing. Okay. But yeah, I mean, other teams are not getting everything that they need. So it's not just an Arsenal thing, but Arsenal are under more pressure than our counterparts. All eyes are on us because everybody is assuming the same thing, that if we don't win it soon, we'll never win it. The time will pass. So there's a lot of pressure on us. Hopefully, um, get something over the line, or we start hearing something like the Nelson links have went dead. Uh, Nobody wants Ramsdale. Nobody wants Kiwior. So come on, you know. I see Arsenal fans talking about we should go get Sterling, we should go get Noni Madueke, we should go get so and so. Coman would be great. Genuinely, we're not getting any of those players unless we move some of these other guys on. So you need to hope that somebody comes in with some money for the players that we have, because we're not gonna just go get an attacker. Like, we have to get rid of people because the Cronkies aren't they're not fronting the bill this time around, and I don't really blame them, if I'm honest, because it's like, you don't sell ever, so they're gonna stop just giving him money. Um, let's see, Blaze says, "People forget how Salah and Mane were good. Saka and Martinelli need work hard to be in that level." They're nowhere near. We act like they're Salah and Mane, but if you actually watch them, they're not even close to the level of that, like, that partnership. Like, Saka puts up numbers, in the last 2 seasons that are like kind of like Salah numbers, but the fear, the consistency, the level, the amount of goals that they scored in every single competition, not just the Premier League, they did that shit in the Champions League too. Like, they were different. So if they don't, like, Martinelli and Saka are not going to be those two. So you have to underpin them with more talent. Because genuinely, like, Liverpool they didn't need anything else as long as they had those 2 and somebody that could stand up in the middle, like, at number 9. Like, those 2 were doing so much heavy lifting, and they were just so good. Johnny says, "It's not any Cronkies, it's FFP. City might been forced to sell Alvarez to balance the books." Um, Burby says, "Just would you take Tony? I heard his price has dropped." No, I wouldn't. Nuances of Fate says, "I honestly afraid Arsenal or Arteta is going to sign Sterling or Mudryk at this point." Honestly, I can't even get afraid of that yet because we don't even have the money or the space to look for either of those players. So I have no fear in us bringing anybody in because we can't even move anybody out. MM says, even Juve is getting Kalulu from Milan, so Kiwior are not moving. I saw that they were going after Danzo. Like, it's crazy. Whoever did I would say, like, the Kiwior deal is always gonna be very confusing to me because we bought somebody in January. Arteta never really used him at all, and then we rebought in that position, and now we don't seem to be able to find somebody to get him. Like, it just feels like a signing that we either shouldn't have made, or, again, a good technical director would tell Mikel to just deal with it, and the 40 million that we spent on Calafiori should have been used for an attacker. You know what I mean? But that's just me. That's just me. And I like Kiwior. I think Kiwior is a good player. I just feel like he doesn't express himself enough on the ball, and Arteta doesn't trust him. And as long as Arteta doesn't trust him, you have to get rid of him. Like anybody that Arteta doesn't trust, you have to get rid because they're just going to sit around on the bench long enough where their value will just plummet. Keenan says, "Sorry, I'm late, Jess. Where are you on the wide forward position? Are you feeling the Adringa links?" Yes, but the links are so weak, Keenan. It's like, do I even put any value in them? I mean, Team News and Ticks every day is coming out with saying that's not what I said. These aggregators are saying that he's saying things that he never said. And basically he said Arsenal could move for Adringa if he's available, which is I could say that. I could say that Arsenal could move for Rodrigo if he's available. And technically, I'm not wrong. They could if he's available. It's one of those throwaway statements that people that claim to be in the know will put out there so that there's never a way that you can catch them out. So if you don't go get Adingra, sorry, not Adingra. If you don't get Adingra, then it's like, oh, well, I said they could, but I never said that they would. You see what I'm saying? So it's like, I don't even want to put any emphasis on it because I kind of need to see guys leave first. Then we can start getting excited about incomings again. But yeah. Coman, I don't want him anywhere near the club. I'll be honest. He's always injured. He has off the field issues that I don't like. So I think a good player, but for me, if I had to choose between Coman and Sane, I would choose Sane. You guys know I don't want Sane. So that's where I am with that. Now, would Coman, would a Sane, would a Rafinha, I said this on the other day, would all those players make us better? Yes, because we have Reece Nelson and Nketiah in our club. So of course they'd make the squad better. But did they really solve the issues that we not really. So I'd rather a Bakayoko or an Adingra or somebody with a higher ceiling that's younger and fresher than these kind of like leftovers. But if it came down to like if you held a gun to my head on the last day of the transfer window and it was like Sane or nothing, welcome back to the Premier League, Leroy Sané. But it shouldn't have to come to that. It shouldn't have to come to that. Jordan says selling Kiwior makes no sense. He has depth that is needed. If we sell Kiwior, then Calafiori signing makes no sense. Why is that? Why is that the case? Stop it. Why is that the case? Kiwior is third choice left center back and like fourth choice left back right now. So he is somebody that's not going to get any playing time this season. Everybody is dooming it like, oh, we're all of our defenders are going to be injured at the same time. They're not. And so I guarantee that if we keep Kiwior right now, he'll play less than he played last season. And that was not very much. So it does make sense to move Kiwior on. It just does. It makes sense. Like Timber is going to be back next week. He'll be back next week. And probably let's give him until like November, December. Timber will be ready to play because he'll be fully over ACL. You have Timber, Zinchenko is trusted by Mikel. You have Calafiori. If Gabriel gets injured, you play Calafiori, Zinchenko's playing. We have Miles Lewis-Skelly that needs to be integrated in. He's more important than Kiwior. His Kiwior is not in the plans, and Miles Lewis-Skelly is. So keeping Kiwior to be an option at left center back when we know if anybody with legs would be played over him in that position if Gabriel were to get injured. Because I even think he would start Tommy there. If Tommy ever got fit, Tommy would play there over Kiwior. Kiwior is another player that is just going to, next summer, people will be saying, Jess, you were right. We should have sold him this past summer because we won't be able to get anybody to give us even more than a loan with an option. It's coming. Kiwior is so far down the pecking order. The only reason why people can't see it now is because Timber and Tommy aren't in the picture. But once Timber comes back, there is like no like Kiwior is not. He's done. Like he's done. I'm telling you. And the best time to sell a player is when it's not obvious. We don't need 8 defenders. We don't need 8 defenders. Like, we just don't. Like, it's too much. Especially since Arteta loves Zinchenko. Kiwior has no role. He has no role. Like, none. He has to go. Big Dead Man says, while he's still worth something, period. Period. IP says Kiwior needs to find a club right now because Arteta won't play him. It's like, yo, he has to go now. Like, by the time we get to January, I'll put money on this. That if he stays by the time we get to January, not only will people be like, we should have sold him, but he will have played like no minutes. Like none. Guarantee it. Arteta does not rate him. If he doesn't rate you, he'll do anything not to play you. He will switch his whole back line to make sure that Kiwior doesn't play. He did not play Kiwior last season until he had nobody else to play there. No one. Like, and Zinchenko is starting the season fit this time. So it's like, he's y'all, I'm telling you. And really, if like, let's say we had to move Calafiori to left center back and Zinchenko couldn't play, genuinely, I'd rather give those minutes to Miles Lewis-Skelly. What's the point of having him in the squad if you're not going to open up minutes for him? I would rather Miles Lewis-Skelly play left back ahead of Kiwior. Because one thing I know about Miles Lewis-Skelly is that, one, if he's bad defending, I can accept it. I can't accept Kiwior being a poor defender in a position. Like, he should be a much better defender, like, reliably than he is at times. But Lewis-Skelly will actually have personality on the ball. Kiwior's main issue for me is that I know he's good. We've seen the comps. We've seen him play for Poland. He is good, but when he gets in the team with Arsenal, he shrinks up like a fucking raisin. Like a raisin. It's like, bruh, like, you have to be, to play for Arsenal, you have to have a little bit of personality. You got to move him on, bro. You got to move him on. You got to move him on. Let's see. Johnny says, stop this Arteta thing. Nobody rates Kiwior. He's just decent, not even good defensively, completely useless offensively. I mean, Arteta doesn't rate him. Like, it's the truth. So, yeah, I don't know. Anton Dunn says, Kiwior did well, but he's slower than a snail. Once we bought Calafiori, Kiwior needed to be gone. Solomon says, what's happened? Merino and Arsenal still, he doesn't sign. We need him. I don't think we can put in a bid. I think we haven't put in a bid because we cannot put in a bid until we move on Eddie Nketiah. Every time the Nketiah deal slows down, the Merino deal slows down. I just think they're connected. They've been going on for the same amount of time. And just like, Emile Smith-Rowe's deal went through and then we got Calafiori, or Calafiori was announced. I just feel like it's very similar. I feel like those two were connected. Now these two are connected. So, yeah. But listen, I got to go because I got to pick up my parents from the airport and stuff like that. I got to do like real life shit. But this was fun. I love talking to you guys. There's 1,100 of you guys in here, but let's see how many of you guys are actually on YouTube. So there's 200 of you guys watching on YouTube. So the rest of you guys are freeloaders on Twitter, as usual. Love you guys too. Come over to YouTube sometime. But yeah, guys, I'm sure some of you guys are going to go and rant on Lee Gunner's channel now. Have fun with that. But enjoy the rest of your day, your evening, whatever. Stay safe, and I'll talk to you guys in the next one. Bye, guys.